committee.
Called Todd McLay.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. It gives me pleasure to rise and speak on this bill, the International Finance Amendment Bill, sponsored by our Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, and can I thank the Minister for his speech earlier. Mr. Speaker, at a time where the global economy faces such great challenges, the role of the IMF is all the more important. One needs only look at the newspaper or reflect back over newspaper reports the last few years to see the important role the IMF has played as the world has moved through the global financial crisis. Indeed, long before that happened, there were countries of the world that needed to seek support from the IMF, and in so doing were able to help reform their economies, take some of the sharper edges off the recessions that were hitting, and help move their countries back onto a stronger footing, onto growth and so on. A reflection, actually, Mr. Speaker, of the work the government, this national government, has done over the last 3.5 years, as New Zealand was faced by the steepest recession of 60 years, as countries around the world were finding they were having to default, were laying people off everywhere, their economies getting much worse. Well, we as a government took the sharper edges off that recession, made important decisions for New Zealanders to help them get through that, and as we heard our Prime Minister say earlier today, have seen growth over 10 of the last 11 quarters, albeit modest in some cases, but compared to much of the rest of the world, at least we have some semblance of positive and straightforward and effective government. Can I say, Mr. Speaker, that New Zealand takes its obligations extremely seriously when it comes to our international commitments to the IMF, to the World Bank, to many other organisations that help countries in their time of need, but more than that, who help countries to develop. And therefore, it's important this bill is brought before us. Contrary to what the last speaker, David Parker, says, this is timely in coming to the House. It needs to be ratified and put in place here in domestic law. That's always the case with pieces of legislation like this. I don't remember a time, Mr. Speaker, at least in looking at my research, that this Parliament hasn't ratified changes such as this. So I look forward to the discussion and debate when it comes to our committee, but I think as this Parliament has never said that one of these changes should not be put in place, that there may be a more effective way that we can do so, and it will be interesting to look at the regulation setting powers and streamlining the work of this Parliament, but also keeping accountability here. And my colleagues who sit on the Regulatory Reform Committee would argue strongly that they play an important role in making sure that democracy is done and there is transparency. So we'll have an opportunity to canvass that and to talk about it at committee, but I do think in this instance, Mr. Speaker, that in as far as changes like this are concerned with the IMF, that a more streamlined procedure will not necessarily take away from what we have at this time. Just to briefly say that the changes to the articles of the IMF fund will do a couple of things: improve the representation of fast-growing emerging market countries at the IMF, double the quota, which is the IMF's main means of raising funds. The 2010 reforms doubled the IMF's total quota resources to about $970 billion, and this bill will provide for regulation-making powers so that future updates to the articles can be made by way of regulation. Mr. Speaker, this bill will come to the Finance and Expenditure Committee. As a newly appointed chair, I look forward to it being there. We'll consult widely on this and we'll have a genuine and honest and open debate with New Zealanders and the opposition, but I think we should deal with this in a timely fashion and refer it back to the House once we've listened to all those concerns. It's a pleasure to speak on this, and I commend the bill to the House.
The Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Speaker, as my colleague David Parker